One calm autumn afternoon, what should have been a simple phone call to my son Miguel turned into an unexpected and painful discovery. Without me knowing, he forgot to hang up the phone and I ended up overhearing a conversation I never imagined. Miguel and my daughter-in-law, Claudia, were planning to exclude me from family gatherings. A plan that seemed small but struck deeply at my heart. It was one of those moments when the world feels like it stops, and you realize that not everything is as it seems. When I heard they even wanted to invade my summer house to keep me away, a wave of sadness and shock overwhelmed me. It wasn't just about physical distance. It was a rejection that wounded my very essence as a mother and grandmother. In those moments, my mind raced, trying to understand the reasons, the hidden motives that led people I love to act this way. The situation felt far more complex than a simple misunderstanding. There was something much deeper and more painful underneath. This experience made me realize that sometimes, the people around us can surprise us in unexpected ways, and what we believe to be safe can collapse in an instant. It's like trusting someone blindly, only to have a shadow of betrayal appear right before your eyes without warning. That initial shock is just the beginning of a journey that reveals more about who we really are and how far we're willing to go to protect our space and dignity. Before we continue, please leave a comment telling me where you're watching from and subscribe to the channel Vintage Revenge Stories. We are building a community of incredible women who know that our best chapters can happen at any age. Now back to the story. Nothing hurts more than being called unbearable by those who should love you unconditionally. As they spoke, I could almost hear the calculating tone in Miguel and Claudia's voices, plotting how to push me away with excuses that masked the truth. This rejection wasn't just a cruel comment. It was a direct blow to everything I've built over the years, an attempt to erase my presence from my own family. It's a feeling that eats away at you inside and makes you question how far love can hide behind convenience. What shocked me even more was Claudia's cold suggestion, asking me to give up my house to them, as if I had no rights over that space that has always been my refuge. It was as if my years of dedication and memories were worth less than a selfish whim. This greed disguised as concern revealed a dark side few families face, showing that the real challenge isn't just rejection, but the fight for what's rightfully yours. An emotional slap that seemed endless. The situation made me think about how complex family relationships can be, where affection mixes with interests and subtle betrayals. Often what hurts us isn't only what's said but what's left unsaid, the silent complicity that supports these actions. It's like learning to navigate turbulent waters, knowing that the real battle is for our own voice and space. And when it comes to family, this war has consequences that echo far beyond the immediate. Hearing those words and feeling their coldness, my mind went back to all the sacrifices I made for Miguel since I became a widow. Years of silent struggle, sleepless nights, and tough choices, always thinking about his well-being. I gave my youth, my time, even my savings to ensure he had a safe and dignified future, even when life seemed determined to knock me down. That deep dedication takes root, and when overlooked, it leaves a wound that's hard to heal. I remember how hard it was to start over, facing the world alone with no one to share the weight of responsibility. Every achievement of his was a piece of my effort, my hidden strength, seen by very few. But the most painful part wasn't the lack of recognition. It was realizing that my presence was now seen as a nuisance and everything I owned became a reason for greed. This reversal of values cuts deep because it shows how much our story can be forgotten or twisted. That memory makes me reflect on how many people go through something similar, silently carrying the burden of unappreciated sacrifices. It's an invitation to look more closely at those beside us so we can truly recognize and honor each other's efforts. And at the same time, it prepares me for the next challenge, learning how to deal with betrayal that comes from within the very circle that should protect us. After that deep shock, the pain gave way to a firm and necessary decision. I couldn't keep waiting to be slowly discarded, as if my story and worth were insignificant. That very night, with a heavy heart, I picked up the phone and called Manuel Salazar, my trusted lawyer. I knew I had to act quickly before it was too late to protect everything I'd built with so much effort and dedication. It was a moment of awakening where vulnerability turned into courage. Feeling threatened by those who should stand by your side demands a clear and firm response that won't let anyone invade your space or try to silence your voice. Manuel gave me not only legal security but also the certainty that my dignity would not be trampled. This act of defense was more than protecting material assets. It was about preserving my identity and self-respect. This experience is a warning to many who, faced with betrayal, still hesitate to act, thinking time or silence will fix everything. But sometimes the best response is to take control of the situation, seek expert help and stand firm. It's a step that, although difficult, opens the way for a new phase where control returns to your hands and the real battle can be faced with clarity and determination. On Sunday, I decided to face the situation head-on and went to Miguel and Claudia's house, bringing gifts for my grandchildren. I kept a calm face because I knew showing weakness would only give them more power. From the moment I arrived, I felt the tense atmosphere. Claudia threw subtle criticisms trying to destabilize me, while Miguel avoided my gaze as if carrying guilt or fear. It was a silent dance of suppressed emotions, where every word held more meaning than it seemed. I knew the conversation about the house would come. It was inevitable, like a shadow hanging over the room. But I didn't let their rush or implied provocation get to me. I chose to respond calmly, keeping control of the situation, because in moments like that, serenity is a powerful weapon. Not answering immediately was also a way to show I wasn't willing to be rushed or manipulated, that my decisions would be thoughtful and firm. This experience taught me that often power isn't in answering quickly but in choosing the right moment to act. It's like playing chess. Patience to wait for your opponent's move can be the key to victory. And that wisdom is exactly what prepares me for the next step, where I will need to reaffirm my position and rights without losing composure. During lunch, the atmosphere seemed peaceful, but behind the words was an invisible tension I felt like a silent knife. Miguel and Claudia began talking about the house in Tampa, insisting it should stay in the family. What caught my attention was how they said it, as if I didn't belong to that important group for them. It was like being present but invisible at the same time, a member excluded from a closed circle. This disguised way of exclusion is a subtle blow many families face without realizing it. They use the word family as a barrier to push me away, as if the concept was flexible, shaped only by their interests. It's shocking how something so strong and sacred can be twisted to serve selfish plans. I replied calmly, just saying I needed to think because I knew any impulsive reaction could be used against me. This situation made me reflect on what family really means and who has the right to define it. Often, it's through actions and words that we reveal who we truly are and who we accept in our circle. And this reflection prepared me for the next moment, where I would need to be even firmer and more aware of my choices and priorities. When it was time to say goodbye, I held my grandchildren with all the love I could gather, as if that hug was an anchor for moments I didn't yet know when would come again. It was a hug full of love and also a silent sadness because, in that instant, I felt something was ending without a promise of a near reunion. When I said goodbye to Miguel, I said farewell, with an intensity he didn't realize, a heavy word carrying more than it seemed. In the taxi as the car pulled away, my eyes stayed fixed on their mansion, that house which for them symbolized everything they had achieved, yet from which I seemed completely excluded. That vision was a cruel portrait of the distance growing between us, not just physical but emotional and symbolic. The house was the stage where they performed the new version of the family, a version where my place had been erased, made invisible. That moment of farewell made me understand that sometimes you need to acknowledge what you're losing in order to seek what truly matters. It was a turning point where the pain of goodbye made room for the strength to start over and prepare for what was coming next. And it was precisely that preparation that would lead me to face the next chapter of my story. The moment I left their house, I knew I needed to act with caution, so I began making strategic phone calls to my sister, my closest friend, and the caretaker of the summer house. Each call was a deliberate step to ensure that if anything happened, I would have a strong, prepared support network. It was a calculated move because I knew the battle ahead would require more than just emotional strength. It would take organization and allies. At that point, I realized the mother who had always put her son's well-being above everything else was slowly disappearing. In her place emerged a determined woman who understood that protecting herself was the first step to staying on her feet. That transformation was not simple, but it was necessary to preserve my dignity and my rights in the face of so much betrayal. It was a painful lesson in the importance of self-care and assertiveness in difficult situations. This stage of preparation taught me that self-protection is not just about reacting in the heat of the moment, but about planning with intelligence and calm. Like a general organizing their troops before battle, I was building my invisible army to face whatever came next. And this strategy would be essential for the next step when the real fight would begin to take shape. With Manuel, my trusted lawyer, by my side, I decided to move quickly to protect my assets once and for all. I updated my will to ensure that my grandchildren would be the true beneficiaries, avoiding any future disputes. In addition, we created a trust, a legal instrument that few people know about but one that is incredibly powerful, to shield my property from outside interference. This brought me immediate relief, as if I had finally placed an invisible shield around what was mine. The most strategic move was placing the summer house into an irrevocable trust, a form of protection that prevents any pressure to give up the property. This type of legal safeguard requires care and knowledge, but it was the best weapon I found to ensure that no one, not even I in a moment of weakness, could give up what I had earned. It is a clear example of how legal knowledge can be a vital tool for anyone who wants to preserve their legacy. I learned that protecting what's ours goes far beyond guarding material possessions. It's about preserving our story, our identity, and the safety of those we love. Understanding these strategies can change lives and prevent future pain. And this preparation was just the beginning of facing the next chapters of this story, which was still far from over. While discreetly selling my apartment, preparing my own path away from all that turmoil, Miguel kept calling me insistently to talk about the house. The frequent contact felt almost like an attempt to pressure me or rush a decision that I knew I couldn't make immediately. That insistence, far from weakening me, only made me realize how necessary it was to take a firmer and clearer stance. It was the first time I spoke to Miguel with a firmness he did not expect, telling him to respect my time to think and decide calmly. My tone had changed. The hesitant woman was gone, replaced by someone who understood the value of her own voice. This new posture unsettled Miguel, who until then seemed used to controlling the situation. For me, it was a personal milestone, the victory of reclaiming the power over my own story and my choices. That distance, though painful, was essential for me to regain control of my life and prepare the next steps with clarity. It's a lesson for anyone facing moments of conflict. Learning to say no firmly can be the first step toward freedom. And that decisive move set me on a path where I would finally be the protagonist of my own life, without letting anyone else dictate the rules. While sitting in the living room, lost in thought, my eyes fell on an old photograph forgotten on a shelf. That simple image, heavy with stories, unleashed a whirlwind of memories that suddenly washed over me, making my heart race with emotion. It was as if the past had come knocking, bringing with it feelings I thought I had left behind. That memory wasn't just any recollection. It carried a special weight, a force capable of transforming how I saw everything around me. Often, images like that connect us to defining moments, turning points that can lead to profound changes. It felt as though, in that instant, a new chapter of my life was about to begin, guided by this resurfaced memory. I realized that memories have this surprising power to reignite emotions and reflections that can change our direction. It's as if the past becomes a tool to understand the present and build the future. This rediscovery prepared the ground for what I would have to face next, with renewed vision and determination. The years that followed were marked by a silence that seemed endless. I tried countless times to make contact, but each call, each message, ended in frustration or absolute silence. This absence was not only physical but also emotional, leaving an unsettling question in my heart. What if one day he actually came back? That doubt followed me like a constant shadow. Living in that bitter waiting is like being in limbo, where time feels both frozen and speeding at once. Anyone who has experienced it knows that the absence of someone we love can create a huge emptiness, almost impossible to fill. I felt that weight every day, as if a part of me was lost and only a reunion could heal the wound. But that weight also brought an important realization. Not every absence is permanent, and not every reunion is what we imagine. Sometimes distance serves to prepare us for what's to come, even if the future is uncertain and painful. And it was this silent preparation that led me to the unexpected reunion I'm about to tell you. When he finally reappeared, I felt a knot in my chest that I didn't know how to untangle. His face was still familiar, but something inside both him and me had changed. The person I had been waiting for was no longer the same, and I was no longer the woman I used to be. It was like meeting a stranger who, no matter how much they carry our history, feels distant and unrecognizable. The sensation was strange, almost as if we were two parallel lines, connected by the past but separated in the present. Talking to him felt like trying to listen to an old song that had lost its rhythm. The notes were still there, but the harmony was broken. That strangeness reinforces something many don't understand: that time transforms people and relationships, even when memory insists on bringing it all back. In the middle of that uncomfortable reunion, I realized that the greatest battle was not against him, but against the expectations I had carried. Because accepting that someone who was once part of our life has become a stranger is painful. But it's the first step toward understanding what we really need to move forward. And that understanding was essential for the deep conversation we had shortly after. Sitting face to face, he began to speak with a sincerity that hurt, revealing the weight of what he had lost by staying away. Every word carried a mix of regret and longing, like someone trying to rescue a time that was already gone. It was impossible not to feel that pain in the air, a feeling so real it was almost tangible between us. Yet, no matter how much he regretted it, I knew that some things simply cannot be recovered. Time does not come back, and the choices we make leave deep marks that aren't always healed by good intentions or apologies. This moment was a clear reminder that, despite the desire to reconnect, the past remains fixed, and the future must be rebuilt from the present. As he spoke, I realized this conversation was more than an exchange of words. It was an invitation to accept what was left behind and think about what could still be built. The pain of longing doesn't have to be a permanent weight. It can be a starting point to understand that not everything we lose can be regained, and sometimes moving forward is the wisest choice. And with that thought, I reached a decisive moment. He spoke with an almost desperate sincerity, confessing his regret for leaving and his longing to be part of my life again. It was an intense moment, where his words tried to mend what had been broken, an attempt to restore a bond that seemed lost forever. But as I listened, an inner voice told me that I was no longer the person who once waited for him. That realization was profound and often a painful one. Time changes us, and with it our needs and boundaries evolve. I had been through a journey of self-discovery, strength, and learning, one that showed me the past cannot define who I am today. Expecting me to be the same as before would mean denying all the growth and self-protection I had fought so hard to achieve over time. It was as if, while he wanted to return to an old relationship, I had built an entirely new identity, firmer, more aware, and far less willing to give up my peace. That difference between the old me and the new me became the central point of the decision I had to make in that moment, a decision that would change everything. In that instant, I chose to protect my peace above anything else. I learned that not every wound needs to be revisited for us to move forward. Sometimes, reopening painful chapters only feeds the pain and stops us from growing. My inner peace had become my greatest treasure, and I was not willing to give it up. Protecting my peace was an act of courage and self-love. I came to understand that forgiving doesn't mean allowing the past to return and hurt me again. It means accepting that certain doors must remain closed so I can truly live. That choice taught me that emotional balance is not a sign of weakness, but of strength and wisdom, the strength to say no when necessary. It was like building an invisible shield, protecting me from both inner and outer storms. And it was this care for myself that allowed me to face what was ahead with serenity and clarity. That decision cleared the path for a final closure, one I would soon experience. When he left, without even looking back, I felt a strange mix of sadness and relief. It was the end of a cycle that, for years, had kept me trapped in memories and unmet expectations. While the sadness of the loss was real, there was also a lightness I had never felt before, like I could finally breathe freely. That goodbye made me realize something. Not all endings are bitter. Some are necessary to make space for new beginnings. I understood that allowing certain people to leave is often the greatest act of love we can give ourselves. It's a vital step toward reclaiming control over our own story and rebuilding a life rooted in peace and authenticity. In that moment, I saw that, despite the pain, my emotional freedom was worth every tear I had shed. And that newly found freedom prepared me for a deeper life lesson that was still to come. With time, I learned a truth that forever changed the way I live. Some people belong in our past, but not in our future. It was a painful yet liberating realization that loving yourself often means knowing when it's time to let go. Holding on to what harms us only blocks our growth and true happiness. Letting go is a practice that requires courage and awareness. It's not about forgetting or denying someone's importance. It's about recognizing when a bond no longer serves our well-being. Think of it like a plant that needs its dead and withered leaves removed in order to thrive. Our soul breathes easier with space for new blooms to grow. Loving yourself is a daily commitment, one that often demands hard choices like this. If you've been through something similar, you know what it means to turn pain into strength. Self-awareness and self-love are powerful paths to building a life where peace prevails. And that journey led me to my next chapter, the moment I began to truly reinvent myself. Over time, I realized that not everyone who was part of my story deserved a place in my future. It was a hard but essential lesson. Loving yourself sometimes means having the courage to release those who no longer add value to your life. I learned that holding on to what harms us only imprisons our happiness and stunts our personal growth. Learning to let go is, in truth, an act of self-compassion. It's understanding that just as we let go of old clothes or habits that no longer serve us, we must also release relationships that hold back our evolution. Picture your life as a garden. If you want new flowers to bloom, sometimes you have to remove the plants that no longer flourish so the new can grow. This process is not easy. It takes patience and daily practice. But self-love grows stronger each time we choose peace over pain. By letting go, I began building a solid foundation for a lighter, truer life, ready for the next chapter of my journey. I decided I needed to truly start over, to leave behind everything that held me back and define myself by who I was in that very moment. I changed my name, bought a house by the sea, and began to create a life that was entirely mine. Every day became an opportunity to reinvent myself, shaping new routines that brought me joy and freedom, from walking on the beach at sunrise to painting in my studio. This transformation was not just physical, it was deep within my soul. It felt like rising from the ashes with a chance to discover a more authentic and free version of myself. I made friendships unburdened by the baggage of the past, with people who welcomed me without judgment and with whom I could share new dreams. This network of support was essential for me to feel safe and connected to this new version of me. Reinvention demands the courage to let go of the familiar and embrace the unknown. But it was in that process that I found peace, lightness, and meaning for my life. The ocean, with its vastness and calm, became my refuge and my constant source of inspiration to keep moving forward. And it was in this new phase that I began to rebuild my relationship with my grandchildren, carefully and with special attention. Share your thoughts in the comments. I want to hear your perspective. And if this story made you reflect, give the video a like and subscribe to the channel for more real and powerful stories like this one. Because in the end, every story is a chance to see life through new eyes.